As I said, I've thought about this a lot because it sort of perplexes me because I'm very much on the cloud. I try to get everything off desktop as much as I can so I can pick up any laptop and still do my work relatively well. I think one of the other big things that I see with some desktop applications, and I'm talking more ERP systems, like very big ERPs where they do have very much an on-prem offering,
Mhm.
is because the databases are so large and to get that performance that the users need to look at their stock levels, screens are super fast on the application versus the cloud. Does that weigh into people's sort of thinking, like the desktop timesheet processing is faster versus the cloud?
Smarter times, stronger teams. Welcome to the BundyPlus Podcast.
Welcome back to the BundyPlus Podcast, and I'm welcoming Levon today. How are you, mate?
Good, thanks, Steve. How you going?
Yeah, it's bad. I've had my first coffee for the day.
There you go. You're doing better than me.
Shameless plug, go Bombers. Today's a really fascinating subject for me, and that seems to be the resurgence in desktop teenage software. We've had a few clients that are sort of, going down that route, and I'm sort of fascinated to find out why. So probably, Levon, you want to start off with, what's the difference between desktop software and what is our cloud software? Because we obviously support both, and our desktop's been around for 25 odd years, not to date
Yep.
myself, but yeah, let's just break down the basic differences between the two.
Yeah, well, I think even before we get into the differences, it's important to highlight the point of both systems are ultimately solving the same problem, which is time and attendance and simplifying payroll. So although there are also some differences in the functionality, the key differences are just how the system is deployed and how it's accessed. So with BundyPlus Desktop or Studio, obviously the traditional application that, as you said, we've been working on for over 20 years. It's a desktop solution, so everything's run locally. So in terms of the differences with BundyPlus Desktop or BundyPlus Studio, the main difference is the pricing structure. So with cloud, we sometimes get clients who are averse to ongoing costs with cloud subscriptions. With desktop, it's a one-time payment. It's yours to keep. It's a lifetime license, so there's no kind of additional costs or ongoing costs from the jump. And then, as I was saying, how it's deployed and accessed. So it's all installed locally. Technically, it could even run without the internet as long as it's just, you're communicating with the devices via your local network. And so there's actually a lot of companies who prefer this model. I think primarily one for the pricing structure that I mentioned, and just maybe having a higher level of control where everything's just run locally on your machines, and you're responsible for your own backup and data management.
From an IT perspective, though, you've got what is servers and databases, right, for the local on-prem solution. Is that a bit of a blocker for some people? Or if it's purely cost-based, isn't there a downside in having that kind of infrastructure that you need to maintain as well?
Yeah, well, as in because there's cost involved with that, right? With
Yeah.
maintaining. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
And staffing.
And staffing. Yep. You're obviously still going to require staff with both solutions and how you're managing that. But yeah, if it's spread across more people and therefore spread across more servers and computers and all the fees that add up with that, that would be one of the other differences.
Mm.
But I think the main one being the pricing structure for sure.
The pricing structure, yeah. As I said, I've thought about this a lot because it sort of perplexes me because I'm very much on the cloud. I try to get everything off desktop as much as I can so I can pick up any laptop and still do my work relatively well. I think one of the other big things that I see with some desktop applications, and I'm talking more ERP systems, like very big ERPs where they do have very much an on-prem offering, is because the databases are so large and to get that performance that the users need to look at their stock levels, screens are super fast on the application versus the cloud. Does that weigh into people's sort of thinking, like the desktop timesheet processing is faster versus the cloud?
Definitely. And I think it's for that reason the desktop solution is more for smaller to medium-sized businesses, because we've had clients who have been using the desktop system for quite a while, and as their business has grown, obviously their database and their employees count has grown, and therefore those tasks become, or processing the desktop system becomes quite data intensive and can obviously slow down. Sure, there are tools that we can do to make the system more efficient, but ultimately moving across to cloud would resolve that issue. So for the larger scale businesses, for sure, it would be a lot more harder or difficult to manage. One, just because of a lot of moving parts. If you have a business with many different sites, with desktop, as we know, with the hardware, it just communicates locally over your network. So requiring the cloud system, or that's where even the hybrid platform, which we can talk a bit more about, where that can come into play, because that can solve the issue of not requiring everything to be on the one network. So that the clocks can communicate over the internet, but then still be pulled back to a single desktop interface or installation.
Yeah, I mean, that has been one that I've seen where we've had long-time customers using desktop, but they've got that need, especially when they went remote or some remote, where they wanted to have a mobile app, and the desktop didn't natively support mobile. So having that hybrid approach where you could use sections of the cloud to gather the people's clockings and then download via the good old trusty industry standard Clockcoms, which has been around for probably even 25 years, longer than the desktop app. That's been a real winner for some people. So let's touch a little bit on the auditing side of it. How would you say the auditing on desktop, this is a question of, how would that still suffice the Fair Work rules as far as recording people's times? Does that still suffice?
I mean, there is audit trails and audit logging in both systems. I would say it's a lot more comprehensive in the cloud-based system. So yeah, on the back of the last episode, making sure that everything's up to standard with Fair Work regulations, you might need to just look at that a lot more closer with the desktop installation.
Yeah. I think the desktop really does cover the basics on what the requirements are, recording when people clocked in and out. You've got records of that and audits of when it happened. I think if you wanted to go into more depth, cloud is definitely, like if you're doing like a forensic type work, where did this person clock in, what GPS location, what device were they on, what area, who modified what and when, and what was it from. The cloud is by far the best. And that's probably the choice that the end customer is going to choose, right? Like what's important to them.
Yeah, definitely. Essentially, and as it relates to their requirements. So I think, when you're thinking about which way to go, yeah, it really comes down to, do you prefer that full data control and want to take care of your own backups? Obviously, if the pricing structure is a critical component or reasoning as to which way you go, that'll pretty much decide for you. If it's just for whatever reason, we have people who just don't want to have any ongoing payments. They just want to buy things one time. I think there was a lot more resistance to this back when cloud was a bit more in its infancy, and when you could, there still were a lot of solutions that were offered in the on-prem format. But now, as we're seeing like everything move to cloud, it's rare actually still, and which is why it's still interesting that we still get inquiries for the on-prem solution. Yeah, so whoever's making the decision or the business owner, it comes down to that. Or do you prefer the flexibility, or you got remote teams where the cloud system's pretty much going to be a no-brainer for you?
And I think it's probably where, BundyPlus in its infancy, it was only desktop and we developed the cloud. So we've always had that sort of native progression and migration path for many businesses. And we do it every week. Clients have been a long time desktop going to cloud and we're going hybrid first and then to cloud. So how many people are still deciding on desktop? And it's still cost?
Sorry.
Is it still cost? Cost is the primary driver for going to desktop.
I think that's the primary driver is cost. People, like I said, they just want to pay for something once and then kind of like forget about it. Whether how that fits into their budgeting, I'd imagine, plays a role in that decision.
And sort of the overall sort of employee count for those ones, is it purely, they've got 100 employees, they've done the ROI on the cloud, monthly subscription versus a once-off, and they worked out, look, I can repay this in 18 months or, 9 months, let's just go desktop. So is that sort of like their try before they buy type option?
Yeah, in a sense. I mean, with the pricing structure, you'll see that they'll do their calculations of what they'd be looking at in terms of the monthly fees on the cloud subscription. And they say, okay, well, in a year's time, that's basically how much it's going to cost me to purchase the desktop system one time.
Yeah.
There is obviously the ongoing maintenance with the desktop, but that is, in comparison to cloud, where that's included in your usage charges. So yeah, I think that's what business owners are thinking about when they make that decision for sure.
Cool. Right.
Yeah.
All right, so making the decision is probably pretty hard for like a lot of businesses. I mean, it's easy for me. I know which way I go, but just throwing up an example for you, Levon. I'm Acme Bolts. I've got 25 employees. I use Xero for my accounting. So what T&A time capture would you be recommending, desktop or cloud?
Yeah, for that, and that's just purely based on what you mentioned about the payroll integration using Xero. I mean, that's a no-brainer. That would have to be the cloud system because the desktop doesn't have any API integrations or even any type of integration specifically with Xero. Sure, desktop still supports and has interfaces and file integrations with many of the payroll systems, but Xero is not one of them. So if someone was coming to me and that's their requirements and that's where they're at, it would be the cloud solution for sure.
Cool. So I am Growers Plus. I've got 200 employees. Costs are super important to me. I just want to do what is the bare minimum to meet my fair work record keeping requirements. What would you choose then?
Yeah, the desktop might be a better fit. It seems like one of the key points there was price and ROI and that type of stuff. So in that case, getting by with the desktop system would, I think, meet your requirements, without even knowing, for example, the payroll integration required. And even just a slight caveat to the last example with Xero. I mean, if you were happy to do your own manual input to Xero, that would be possible as well. If it was a smaller size or smaller team, that's still possible too. Which we definitely still finding clients who want that, even though they're using a payroll system that we support, they still want to use their systems of just export a timesheet as Excel, and then they can key that into Xero. But going back to your second example, I think the desktop system there might be a better fit for that company.
Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts. Look, I briefly mentioned the hybrid scenario or solution. So, whether that's as a means of somewhat reducing your costs on the cloud system where you're primarily using desktop for your final processing, but you might want to leverage using the cloud system for example, our mobile app, or it's if you have, different sites and, you don't have a VPN across your different sites, so you can't really manage that with the desktop environment. So using the cloud system for that as well. The hybrid solution is something that we still have a number of clients using also.
Yeah.
And just lastly on that, the advantages of cloud as well, aside from functionality and remote access and all that kind of stuff, is also just scaling and kind of future proofing. I mean, even though desktop or our on-prem solution isn't quite end of life, I mean, it's kind of ceased in terms of development. So going with the cloud system, kind of guarantees you're going to get all the updates and all that kind of stuff included.
Yeah, I was just going to touch on probably do your full due diligence to start with. I mean, you might, go down the cost path, but there might be a lot of hidden costs as well that might be, in there. If you want to go desktop but you don't have a VPN, okay, let's set up a VPN, not knowing that that's going to cost you $25 a month. So you might as well have gone cloud, just the whole flexibility of it. I mean, in a couple of podcasts ago, we spoke about resilience and payroll. Just having that flexibility in cloud is much more available. The add-on ability for different clocks, you might be hyper nimble where you want to add mobile clockings for anyone at any time. Whereas if you're fully down the desktop route, adding those things on later is probably a little bit harder. So my point is do your full diligence. Don't just go on the one price. What else do I need to add to fulfill that on-prem solution? Is it 2 hours of a DB manager's time? What does that cost you? And you don't have to have that in cloud.
So due diligence is important, or being thorough with the full project scope when you're making the decision for sure.
Yeah, cool. All right. I think that's just about it, Levon. I'm still as perplexed as why people are doing it. I don't know about you. How many desktop apps have you got still? I think I've got 2.
Not many.
Yeah, I got 2. One is like an AutoCAD thing that's comes down to the performance, like cloud AutoCAD's bad, and a development system, and that's desktop as well. Same thing. So that's it.
Yeah, and even in any of the desktop ones I'm thinking of are still, essentially cloud hosted anyway. You're just running the application, but you're still, it's essentially still accessible remotely.
Excellent. So if someone's looking for like a solution, they need help, they just book a discovery call with you in the show notes down there?
Book a discovery call either with myself or Mike. We'll be obviously happy to go through all your requirements and pick the best solution for you, or at least assist you in making that decision for sure.
Awesome. All right. I think that's it for today, Levon. Thank you. I think we've
There we go. Catch you in the
bring
next
it-
step.
I think we'll bring a little bit of clarity on why people are doing and why not. So, yeah, we'll see you in the next one.
Catch you, Steve. Cheers.
Smarter times, stronger